when he first heard the words Kal-El and Krypton, we wanted it to be Christopher Reeve. So we reached out very early because I believe this episode shot in like early January, February, if I recall, because it's episode 17 or something like that. So we reached out very early through his agents, and I think his agent was Scott Henderson. And we said, is Chris aware of Smallville? We have a part. We'd love him to do it. Can he, what do we need to do? So this was in the fall. And Scott reached out to Chris, and then a couple weeks later, we heard back. He's seen the show. He's really impressed. He really likes the guy who plays Clark. And,
nothing about Lex, of course.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
But he said, and he wanted to have a conversation about it. So I got on the phone with Chris, and what's really fascinating is when you spoke to him, you had no idea of his condition, and you never had a short phone conversation with Christopher Reeve. They were at least 45 minutes long, and he was a fascinating, lovely guy who had a lot to talk about, was very direct, was very honest about his situation and how that worked. And the thing he wanted was, there's a donation to his charity, to the Christopher Reeve Foundation, and a PSA with you. And that's where this is where, like, I don't care who you are, what show you're doing. This was a hit show in season 2, and we had literally Chris Reeve, and that took 4 months of who was going to pay the money for, because it's more than just a top of show guest star. So, so that became a big negotiation.
Also, the production element in terms of going to New York and shoot that whole thing was a whole, different story, and all of it was just a headache in terms of a regular TV show, but obviously something that we were all committed to doing, that we knew would be so important for the series and for the legacy of Superman.
Did you find yourself, Miles? I have a feeling, did one of you guys get to the point where you just were like really stern and really like, what the fuck on these conversations? Get this fucking
thing done. That's our first response usually.
That's how Miles leads.
Yeah, it's alpha, but it's so obvious, and so again, we felt it was so important that this episode, we knew it was going to be a cornerstone episode of the show, and the show in season 2 it just exploded in popularity. So it was like it was the moment, and Chris was just felt like that, achievable but amazing person to get into the show.